And this is Pakistan's evil plan to disrupt Diwali. You and I, our entire country is getting up to celebrate Diwali, the festival of lights. This is when Maryada Purushottam Sri Ram reached Ayodhya after defeating demon king Ravan. But this demon of terrorism still needs to be defeated. And this is where Pakistan wants to disrupt Diwali by a big terror attack. Police have set up multiple barricades on busy arterial roads to scan vehicles after receiving an intelligence alert about a possible terror strike by Pakistan-backed terrorists on or ahead of Diwali. The Saturday night encounter in North Kashmir, in which 4 braves, including Captain Ashutosh of the Madras Regiment, made the supreme sacrifice of their lives, is being seen in the light of Pakistan's desperation to push in infiltrators ahead of Diwali. Inputs indicate there are between 200 to 300 terrorists at terror launch pads in Pakistan-occupied Kashmir, waiting and trying to infiltrate.
At any given point in time, that number varies between 200 to 300, but there are people active on the launch pads trying day in and day out to push in more numbers, but a grid on the border is definitely taking care of them.
There are multiple reasons for the sudden spike in infiltration attempts at the LOC. Large number of terrorists have been killed by the security forces in the valley. Virtually the entire terror leadership of Lashkar-e-Taiba, Jaish-e-Mohammed and Hizbul Mujahideen have been eliminated. Pakistan is also desperately seeking global attention and focus on Kashmir. Pakistan is also trying to help all-weather ally China, facing the heat at the line of actual control.
Pakistan is trying its best before the higher reaches are covered with snow to push as many militants as they can into India. Pakistan is under tremendous pressure from China to put as much pressure as it can on India.
Pakistan failed to incite people in the valley, and there is a big drop in terror incidents and recruitment in Kashmir. The spike in infiltration attempts is to provide weapons, leadership, training and guidance to local misguided youth who may have picked up the gun. Pakistan's military jihad industry fears a total failure, with a number of youth in Kashmir giving up arms and surrendering to security forces.
A recent encounters of the Hizbul Mujahideen, Dr. Saifullah and Riaz Naiku have left ISI in shock. Now they are trying to infiltrate more terrorists from the LOC.
Within a fortnight, passes in the higher reaches, both of Pir Panjal and Shamshabari, will close due to heavy snowfall. And Pakistan is desperate to push terrorists ahead of the passes closing for the winters. With Sunil Ji Bhatt in Jammu and Jitendra Bahadur Singh in Delhi, Bureau Report, India Today. And joining me now on the broadcast is Lieutenant General Syed Atta Hasnain. He's former Kashmir Co-Commander, and Ambassador G. Parthasarathy, former High Commissioner to Pakistan. Two men who understand Pakistan and China and the dynamics on ground. We'll talk to them in greater detail, but before that, an encounter at the line of control where we lost a young army captain and 4 braves of the Indian Army to kill 3 to 4 terrorists. A very expensive, a very, very heavy price that India had to pay to defeat Pakistan-sponsored terror.
The line of control in North Kashmir's Kupwara resonated with heavy gunfire. Attempts by terrorists to infiltrate from the Pakistani side challenged by alert forces. On the night of November 7th, patrolling troops in the Machil sector noticed terrorists trying to sneak across the line of control. The soldiers opened fire. One terrorist was killed on the spot, but the others managed to hide in the mountains. Additional troops were rushed in and the entire area was surrounded. The 2 remaining terrorists were also eliminated. In the operation, 3 army soldiers, including an officer, and a BSF Jawan were killed in action. The bravehearts include Captain Ashutosh Kumar of the Madras Regiment, who died battling the terrorists.
Infiltration attempt at this time, before the weather packs up, is a desperate attempt by Pakistan Army, ISI and terrorist groups. None of their efforts for infiltration will be permitted to be successful. Counter-infiltration grid of the security forces is very effective. This operation is still in progress, and such ill-designed and ill-intended intentions by Pakistan Army, ISI and terrorist group will not be permitted to be successful.
With over 200 terrorists killed in the valley this year, the Pakistan-based terror groups are now desperate to infiltrate and push in fresh terror recruits to shatter calm in the valley. Pakistan's forces continue to engage in ceasefire violations to give cover to these infiltrating terrorists. But this year, Indian forces have been able to stop 3/4 of infiltration of terrorists through the line of control in Jammu and Kashmir. With Ashraf Wani in Srinagar, Bureau Report, India Today.
To kill 4 terrorists, we lost 4 braves, including a young army captain. General Hasnain, when India punished terror at source, there was a surgical strike after Uri and an airstrike after Pulwama in Balakot. If that's the new template, shouldn't India be hitting terror training camps, or is that easier said than done?
See, Gaurav, I agree that every time we have a major strike of this kind, or attempt of this kind, and we lose certain amount of personnel, there is a tremendous amount of pressure on the army leadership. There's a tremendous amount of pressure on the government itself to strike back and do something. I think each time you can't have a Balakot or a surgical strike immediately. That is reserved perhaps for something which has crossed the Rubicon completely. This is an attempt which has happened on our territory, inside our territory, through our own good drills, better training, etc. We will ensure that we impose a cost on the other side through whatever means. But I think that is already being achieved in a very big way in different areas. It's not only in the Machal area itself. We have eliminated the terrorist infiltration completely, but to immediately go in for a response of this kind will be considered virtually knee-jerk. So I would not go by that, but I would definitely say that if a pattern of this kind comes in, definitely India would always be seeking a much bigger punishment on the Pakistan Army on the other side.
That's the point I was coming to. If there are 250 to 300 terrorists at launch pads, why not strike at the launch pad instead of fighting the terrorist either at the LC or in depth areas? But Ambassador Parthasarathy, in your appreciation, why is Pakistan doing this now? Is it to help China, or is this to grab US President-elect Joe Biden's attention and shift the focus once again on Kashmir?
I would say it's both. Firstly, some time ago in the Global Times, there was talk of the India worried about a sort of joint strike or joint cooperation between Pakistan and China. And this was in the Global Times. So that's the mouthpiece of the party. Secondly, this is the time one should expect this, because the snows will set in soon and they will try to push in as much as they can. Politically and diplomatically, there is a reason. Things have settled down in the valley as far as law and order is concerned, and the troops have been very active in knocking out what remains. And you're getting a new American government. You're getting a government in which, from a party where they are speaking of human rights violations, Kashmir and so on. So this is also to see that the temperature is kept hot when the new government comes to make accusations against India. So the Pakistanis are quite obviously through. They do work pretty hard in Washington and in the US to get out what is thinking. And what is obvious is that, unfortunately, some of these people making these human rights comments are actually Indians elected to the House of Representatives. This has been quite shocking, to say the least. So, but anyway, that's something we'll tackle
Okay, so
politically and diplomatically. But I think we should be very clear. The Chinese and the Pakistanis will coordinate. The Chinese now are under pressure because I don't think they can last the snows in. It would be something very difficult for them. Our boys have it for about 30, 25 years now.
okay,
So as the talks, let's see what happens
very interesting.
tomorrow. As the
So
Prime Minister.
there's pressure at the SCO. Okay, there's pressure on China. China's mounting that pressure on Pakistan. So we see a hotter LC. In this case, General, as you and I were just discussing, when terrorists are killed, that's like pruning leaves of the terror tree. Now, to cut off the branches or to strike at roots, shouldn't India be hurting in retaliation? If they kill a young captain and 3 soldiers of ours, should that pain not be suffered by the Pakistan army to send out the message, bleeding India is no longer a low-cost option for Pakistan army?
Gaurav, there is no doubt about what you say. It's a question of the government of India making up its mind. It's a question at the moment, I think, that is being assessed that with the kind of success that we have achieved in the valley this year, the kind of losses that we have had is comparatively much lesser. Perhaps the level of acceptance, and this is I know it's a very, very negative term to talk about when it comes to casualties, the level of acceptance at the moment perhaps may just be tolerable. And that is why we have not gone across.
Okay.
If you remember, we also had an incident in the month of March end. 1st of April, we lost 5 of our paratroopers, special forces people. That time also, it was the beginning of the season. This is almost the last end of the season. Both times we have lost 5 men and 4 men. It would have dictated that we do something major across the line of control. To my mind, I think you have to remember one thing. When you say there are 200 to 300 terrorists across the line of control, it is not certain where exactly they are. These terror camps, I would like to just clarify to you also, are, they are very mobile camps. They are just 1 or 2 dhokes, maybe 1 or 2 shepherd's huts, which can be changed overnight in a matter of couple of minutes, nothing else. So you have to have very good intelligence to make sure you have all the information and then go and strike. But at the end of the day, I say again, if the government of India decides that a degree of punishment is necessary against the Pakistan army, so be it. The Indian army, I'm sure, can put together its act in a matter of hours and ensure its execution.
Absolutely. Will there be pressure, Ambassador Parthasarathi, on India now to engage with Pakistan? Because with Donald Trump as President of the United States of America, you could do a Balakot and there'd be no pressure. You could do a surgical strike and perhaps if there was pressure, India was able to withstand it. With Kamala Harris and Joe Biden, would there be pressure on India to engage with Pakistan? And is that the reason that Pakistan wants a spike in terror, whether in the valley or the rest of the country, sir?
Well, I would be certainly they will be testing, and you know what they will be doing right now is building up enough through infiltration on our side. As the general has been saying, they've been taking pretty heavy casualties because the offensive pressure has been on them. So yes, certainly that will be on the cards because they have to prove to the Biden government that things are not okay in Kashmir. Really, General Hasnain, I think he'll agree with me. The thing is political in Jammu and Kashmir. Some sort of movement which to show that we are reaching out to normalize things. I for one feel that the sort of communications problems which we are causing of mobile phone connections, 4G and so on, it's ridiculous. I would say it's childish. I'm sorry, I disagree with the government on this.
Okay.
You have to show that you're confident and making progress. When the troops have sealed off the border and they've done their job, it's for the Jammu and Kashmir government to do its job, or maybe being able to show the world that there's a measure of normalcy.
Fair enough, but when you talk about political activity, I want our viewers to listen in to what the PDP chief and former chief minister of the erstwhile state of Jammu and Kashmir, Mehbooba Mufti, had to say about terrorism and youth picking up the gun. Is she Is she being economical with the truth? Because also listen in to Dilbag Singh, the Director General of Jammu and Kashmir Police.
माहौल खराब किया जा रहा है कि हम जैसे लोग जो वहाँ लोग रहते हैं उनका रहना भी मुश्किल हो गया है। इतनी मिलिटेंसी बढ़ गई है इनके वक्त में। ये कहते थे मिलिटेंसी खत्म हो गई है। आज एक एक गांव से 10-10, 15-15 लड़के एक साथ चले जाते हैं, क्योंकि आपने जो एक आवाज थी तमाम आवाजों को बंद कर दिया है। आपने लोगों के पास कोई रास्ता ही नहीं छोड़ा है, बीच का रास्ता ही नहीं छोड़ा है। लड़का सोचता है या तो मुझे जेल जाना है या बंदूक उठानी है, तो अच्छा है मैं बंदूक उठाऊं तो मैं मर जाऊं, वो ज्यादा बेहतर है जेल जाने से, क्योंकि बात नहीं करने देते आप किसी को।
Terror recruitment is much below the previous years, and I'm happy to report that most of the boys who went astray and joined terrorist ranks, even they are coming back and joining their families. That's a very welcome trend.
Hasnain, you heard both Mehbooba Mufti and you heard Dilbag Singh. You've commanded the Srinagar Corps. Your appreciation, is Mehbooba Mufti being economical with the truth or Dilbag Singh?
See, firstly, Gaurav, I firstly agree with what Mr. Parthasarthi says on this aspect that there has to be an outreach which has to be much more effective, more visible on ground, where you're seen to be with the people and the people seem to be coming on board with you. Number one. Number two, on the aspect of what Mehbooba Mufti says, obviously this whole business of the Gupkar conclave which has gone on, this aspect of looking at Article 370, etc., this is playing on their minds in such a way that they are not looking at the realities of the ground situation. What Dilbag Singh says is absolutely right, that in terms of statistics and numbers, the number of terrorists killed is as much as almost last year. The amount of recruitment which has taken place is far lower. The amount of infiltration which has happened is absolutely lower. It is almost now 29 to 30, which is probably the lowest in the last 30 years which has taken place. So there is no truth in what Mehbooba is saying on these issues. There's no doubt that there is a tremendous effort on the security front. I wish that much of effort could also go on visibly on the psychological front.
Fair enough, because this war has to be fought at multiple levels also to win hearts and minds, because do keep in mind the adversary is fighting it at multiple levels through people like, remember that ISI agent Ghulam Nabi Fai and the people he sponsored to build a narrative, whether in India, Pakistan or the United States of America. Such elements will become very active in the days, weeks and months to come. We'll be tracking that story very, very closely, but that is all I have time for on the show this evening. Ambassador Parthasarthi and General Hasnain, as always, a pleasure to have you on the broadcast. A quick break. News and updates continue on India Today. Stay with us.
Hi everyone, Preeti Chaudhary here. Hope you like this video. For latest news and analysis, like and subscribe to the India Today YouTube channel. And don't forget to press the bell icon to stay updated. Thank you for watching.